Hello everyone, welcome to another video. My name is Cynthia. Today I'm going to be talking to you about the relationship between stereotypic behavior and nutrition. I'm going to tell you what stereotypies are and why they matter, or how nutrition affects the development or the prevention, including what we feed horses as well as how we feed horses. I'm then going to talk about practical changes we can make to help either prevent or potentially treat stereotypies. As with my last video on the welfare implications of bridles, including bits and nosebands, this video is not about my personal opinion. This is a review of the scientific literature. What are stereotypies? Stereotypic behavior is defined as unwanted, repetitive behaviors that appear to serve no functional purpose. Things like cribbing, wind sucking, wood chewing, weaving. Previously, stereotypies have been referred to as vices, but we don't use this term anymore because to say that something is a vice implies that the horse is behaving badly and that the horse is at fault. But that's not the case with stereotypies. What we now realize is that stereotypies emerge due to substandard welfare. Stress, frustration, boredom, and other forms of mental distress can provoke the development of stereotypic behavior. Stereotypies are not bad behavior, they are a welfare issue. There are consequences of stereotypies beyond impaired welfare, which is reason enough to care, but aside from that, horses that display stereotypic behavior may suffer from poor performance, loss of body condition. They may be at increased risk of colic, dental issues, lower sale values. So overall, research is showing that the reasons why stereotypies develop have to do with unnatural management conditions that we impose on our horses. Stereotypies have actually never been recorded in free-ranging feral horses. Horses evolved over 60 million years, and although they have been domesticated for several thousand years, they have retained all of their natural instincts and their natural needs. Many of these have to do with nutrition in terms of both what horses eat as well as how they eat. Proper nutritional management is important not only physiologically but also psychologically. Horses have evolved to graze continuously. They will typically eat somewhere between 16 and 20 hours a day. Now, in contrast with that, modern horses typically live in stables and they're fed 2 to 4 meals a day of high quality forage as well as concentrates. A UK survey of over 1,000 leisure horses showed that only 30% of those horses had constant access to forage. Meanwhile, 70% of those horses had feed-related behavior problems, including stereotypies. The research suggests that limited time spent eating can provoke the development of stereotypic behavior. Horses are more likely to crib when they have restricted access to forage. If horses are bedded on straw, they're less likely to exhibit stereotypic behaviors than horses who are bedded with other things like shavings or pellets. It's theorized that the reason behind this is because if horses are bedded on straw, they can end up eating their bedding, and that will fulfill their natural need to forage. A study by Benhajali and his colleagues showed that providing constant access to forage increased welfare, decreased agonistic social behaviors, increased positive social interactions such as allo-grooming. This suggests that well-being increases with ad-lib forage provision, which decreases motivation to develop or to perform stereotypies. Locomotor stereotypies are those that express a horse's frustration when that horse is physically unable to move towards a desired resource, such as food. Locomotor stereotypies increase around feeding times. Providing horses with constant access to forage will decrease frustration before feeding times because they've always got something to eat, and that will decrease their motivation to perform stereotypies. Most modern horses are also fed hard feeds, so concentrates or supplements. The aforementioned study of UK leisure horses showed that 93% of these horses received a daily hard feed. Research has shown that feeding concentrates increases the risk of developing or performing stereotypic behavior. The number of meals provided is correlated with the frequency of stereotypic behavior. If multiple grain meals are provided, the prevalence of oral stereotypies, such as cribbing or wind sucking, decreases. However, anticipatory stereotypies increase when the number of daily meals is increased. So this same study also showed that feeding multiple meals to only some horses caused the other horses who were not being fed to develop anticipatory stereotypies. A study by Hockenhall and Creighton showed that feeding concentrates only once a day decreased the occurrence of anticipatory stereotypies. So it's better for digestive health to feed multiple meals throughout the day, but the research is suggesting that it's better for psychological health to feed fewer concentrated meals. More studies do need to be done to figure out what the optimum solution is. So the typical diet of horses, which is intermittent forage, large grain meals, frequent fasting periods, has physiological consequences as well as psychological consequences. This modern diet can also increase colic risk, provoke laminitis, and it can also lead to gastric ulcers. Ulcers are of particular interest to people who are looking into the correlation between nutrition and stereotypic behavior in horses. A study showed weanlings who cribbed had significantly more ulcers than weanlings who didn't display this behavior. There was a hypothesis that cribbing can help soothe digestive discomfort by promoting the production of saliva. Saliva can buffer the acidic gastric juices that are continuously produced in horses. This was specifically looked at. However, the findings were that saliva production did not actually increase when cribbing was performed by the horses. So that contradicted the hypothesis. What was hypothesized instead, cribbing can stimulate the vagus nerve, which increases gastric acidity, in turn causes ulcers. This study suggested cribbing actually causes ulcers rather than treats them. Overall, there does appear to be a relationship between cribbing and ulcers, although it's not completely understood and more studies need to be done. There's also a study that was published just this year on the relationship between crib biting behavior and selenium. The results of this study showed that in horses that displayed crib biting behavior, serum selenium concentrations were lower than in horses who did not display this behavior. It's not really understood why that would be, but it is a new area of research. That's what the research is showing right now in terms of how nutritional management can provoke the development of stereotypic behavior. We can optimize our horses' nutritional management to prevent the development of stereotypic behavior. These suggestions are important for all horses, not just for horses that already display stereotypic behavior. It's much better to prevent these behaviors in the first place than to try to reverse them once they're already established. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't implement management strategies to improve that horse's welfare, even if we don't directly see the frequency of stereotypic behavior decrease. First of all, we need to provide our horses with constant access to forage. It's ideal to do this through turnout. If that's not possible, then the next best thing is to make sure that they have ad lib access to either hay or haylage. From a physiological as well as a psychological point of view, it's better to feed our horses greater quantities of moderate quality hay or haylage as opposed to smaller quantities of very nutrient dense rich hay. If your horse has to be on a restricted intake diet, then it's a good idea to implement slow feed strategies to give your horse that continual access to forage without necessarily increasing the amount that your horse eats. So you can use a hay net. If you divide forage among several hay nets, your horse will have an increased feed time relative to if all the horse's forage is only in one hay net. A lot of people use boredom breaker toys of different kinds to try to keep their horses busy. There has been a little bit of research looking into it, and the results are mixed. Sometimes it seems effective, sometimes it's not. In terms of feeding concentrates, it's important to feed the minimum amount of concentrates possible. A lot of people feed concentrates in order to provide their horses with supplements. There is generally very little scientific support for a lot of the supplements that are commonly used. It's really worthwhile looking into some scientific research to make sure that they actually work. If your horse does receive a hard feed, then it is important to make sure that your horse has access to forage at the same time in order to decrease the display of anticipatory stereotypies. How many meals should you feed your horse? There's no perfect solution for this right now. Give your horses as little concentrates as possible in as few meals as possible for physical as well as mental health. It's important to make sure that your horse's ration is balanced. You're not over supplementing or under supplementing any nutrients. Selenium concentrations have been correlated with cribbing stereotypies. This does not mean that if your horse is a cribber or if your horse isn't, that you should automatically put your horse on a selenium supplement. Please don't do that. Selenium has a very narrow range of toxicity. That means it's easy to give your horse too much. And giving your horse too much is no better than not giving your horse enough. If you don't know how to balance your horse's ration, then please ask a a nutritionist for help. As another alternative, you can take the nutrition course at Equine Guelph. It teaches you how to balance your horse's ration and how to analyze your horse's diet to make sure that he's getting everything he needs. Now, the focus of this presentation is on the relationship between nutrition and stereotypies, but I can't talk about stereotypies without talking about the importance of social interaction and of turnout. Horses need freedom, friends, and forage. It's been shown that horses with social interaction display fewer stereotypies, and that horses who are isolated display more stereotypies. Time spent stabled is positively correlated occurrence of stereotypic behaviors. So that's an overview of what to do. I also want to touch on what not to do. Please don't punish your horse for displaying any stereotypic behavior. It does not work. Additionally, research shows that we should not prevent these behaviors. If you take away the horse's ability to stereotype, you're taking away the horse's coping mechanism, and that again will further decrease welfare. Instead, we need to focus our energy and our efforts on improving the horse's living conditions to improve the horse's welfare, to decrease the motivation to display stereotypic behavior. In conclusion, stereotypic behavior is defined as unwanted, repetitive behaviors that appear to serve no functional purpose, but which we now know are indications of frustration, stress, or other forms of mental distress related to substandard welfare. Because nutrition is so strongly correlated to the natural conditions under which horses evolve, proper nutritional management is essential in preventing as well as treating stereotypic behavior in horses. Limited access to forage and the frequent feeding of concentrated feeds are linked to the development of stereotypic behavior. There may also be a correlation between ulcers and stereotypies, specifically cribbing, although this relationship is not fully understood. There's also a possibility that nutrient deficiencies or excess can be linked to stereotypic behavior, although further research is needed on this as well. But we do know that we can implement several nutrition-based management strategies in order to prevent these behaviors in our horses. We can give our horses constant access to forage, preferably through turnout, otherwise through ad lib forage in a stabled environment. This can be done using slow feed strategies if necessary. Horses should only be fed concentrates when needed and the minimum amount possible to meet a horse's daily needs. And the ration should be balanced to make sure that all the nutrients are being provided in the appropriate amount for that individual horse. And then of course, we can't forget that in addition to forage, horses need friends and they need freedom too. That's it for this presentation. As always, if you have any questions, please let me know. You can find my full reference list down below. Please check out my other videos, share with any horsey friends that you think would benefit from this knowledge, and see you in the next one.